The case began with a disappearance that baffled local law enforcement. Three highly experienced detectives, Captain Wang, Li Guangtong, and Qiu Chui, vanished without a trace while pursuing a fugitive into deep mountainous terrain. When search teams finally located their vehicle in a steep ravine, the scene presented an impossible puzzle. The car was mangled, yet completely devoid of fingerprints, blood, or human remains. More than 20 days later, long after the hope of finding them alive had faded, a delayed email arrived at the precinct. Sent at the exact time of their disappearance, the message contained only 3 words: Xiaojia Village. Enter Shen Zi. A specialist called in as a last resort, he was about to step into Xiaojia Village, a place locals claimed the living could not find, and from which those who entered never returned. On a winding, unpaved mountain pass in the heat of midsummer, a black Cherokee made its slow, steady ascent. It was a desolate route. Only the initial stretch was paved. The deeper it went, the rougher the dirt road became. Due to a prolonged dry spell, the dust was exceptionally thick. The moment the pristine black SUV passed through, it was instantly coated in a blinding cloud of dirt, rendering it unrecognizable. The road was pockmarked with jagged potholes, clearly abandoned by municipal maintenance for years, forcing the vehicle to a crawl. By the time the silhouette of the village emerged, dusk was already settling. The Cherokee rolled into the settlement and parked near the village gate. It was the exact hour villagers were returning from the fields. The sight of a strange vehicle drew intense, scrutinizing glares from every passerby. Yet, strangely, neither adults nor children dared to approach it. The car doors opened. From the driver's side emerged a tall, imposing man wearing sunglasses. From the passenger side stepped a young man dressed like a typical college student, white button-down shirt, khaki pants, skateboard shoes, and a wooden easel strapped to his back. The tall man removed his sunglasses, raising his arm to reveal a string of Buddhist bodhi beads slipping out from under his cuff. This was Shenzi, and his companion was Chiziyu. Shenzi intercepted a local man carrying a hoe and politely inquired, "Excuse me, friend, is this Xiaojia village?" The man eyed him with blatant hostility. "It is. What are you doing here?" Unfazed by the aggressive tone, Shenzi pulled the young man closer. "My younger brother heard the scenery here is beautiful, so he came to sketch. I had some free time, so I tagged along to keep him company. Could you tell us where the village chief lives?" Chiziyu offered a bright, polite smile. "Hello, sir." Perhaps disarmed by the young man's pure, unthreatening demeanor, the villager's scowl softened slightly. He pointed toward a house deeper in the settlement. "That's the chief's house. Go find him yourselves. He should be home at this hour." After Chiziyu thanked him, the man hoisted his hoe, hesitated for a moment, and offered a grim warning. "You came here to paint? Don't wander too far. Our mountains aren't like your city. There are wolves in these woods, and whatever you do, absolutely do not leave your house at night." Without a change in expression, Chiziyu thanked him again. The man turned and walked away rapidly, clearly wanting nothing to do with them. Following the directions, they drove to the village chief's residence. It appeared to be an ordinary rural home, a large courtyard containing 3 south-facing brick and tile rooms, flanked by 2 side wings. The front gate stood wide open. In the center of the yard, a muscular young man was scrubbing himself down with a towel beside a large basin half-filled with water. When Shen Zi knocked on the open gate, the young man didn't stop washing. "What are you knocking for?" he snapped bluntly. "The gate is wide open. Don't you know how to walk in?" Shen Zi and Chiziyu exchanged a glance and entered. "Friend," Shen Zi addressed him, "are you the village chief?" The young man paused, turning to scowl at them. "Who are you? What do you want with my father?" Shen Zi reiterated their cover story, explaining they were outsiders seeking a place to stay for a few days while his brother sketched the local scenery. The young man threw his towel into the basin with a loud splash and hollered in a deep voice, "Dad, someone's looking for you." From behind a curtained doorway, an energetic man in his 60s emerged, hands clasped behind his back. This was Chief Zio. Shen Zi immediately approached, respectfully explaining their situation and offering to pay full room and board. Chief Zio evaluated the 2 newcomers with a sharp gaze. He inquired about their names and relationship. Shen Zi introduced himself and Chiziyu, claiming they were cousins. The chief noted Chi Ziyu's young age of 19 and his claim to be an art student, glancing at the easel on his back. Suddenly, the chief's demeanor shifted. His eyes locked onto the bodhi beads on Shen Zi's wrist. "Are you a Buddhist?" the chief asked. "Have those beads been consecrated?" Shen Zi held up his wrist. "It was a gift from an elder in my family. They said it wards off evil and brings peace." The chief nodded slowly, seemingly satisfied. "All right. Us country folk don't care much about exactly how much you pay. Just leave a little something when you go. I'll have Chuenzi take you over to Old Man Ju's place at the head of the village." Shen Zi smiled and expressed his gratitude. Before they left, the chief delivered another warning. "Stay for a few days, then leave quickly. It's going to rain soon. Whenever it rains here, flash floods follow. Once that happens, you won't be able to leave even if you want to." Nodding in agreement, Shen Zi pulled out his wallet and pressed exactly 500 yuan into the chief's hand. The chief didn't feign politeness. He took the cash and shoved it straight into his pocket. Taking the opportunity to build rapport, Shen Zi asked for the chief's surname. "Zio," the chief replied. "This is Xiojia village. Everyone in this village is named Zio." Chuanzi, the young man who had been washing in the yard, put on a black t-shirt and expressionlessly commanded them to follow. As Chi Ziyu walked with Chuanzi, Shen Zi trailed slowly behind in the Cherokee. The village was small, and they soon arrived at Old Man Ju's house, a property comparable in size to the chief's. Before entering, Chuanzi explained that Old Man Ju's son and daughter-in-law worked away in the city, leaving the old man alone in the spacious house. "He's a good person," Chuanzi noted. "He just doesn't like to talk." Chuanzi pushed the gate open and shouted into the yard. A man roughly the same age as the chief stepped out. Upon seeing Chuanzi, a warm smile broke across his face as he asked about Chuanzi's wife and newborn child. The domestic warmth vanished instantly when Chuanzi explained that his father had ordered the two outsiders to lodge there. Old Man Ju's face darkened as he scrutinized Shen Zi and Chi Ziyu. "Your father is only good at bringing me trouble," he grumbled without an ounce of hospitality. Despite Chuanzi's reassurance that the guests were paying, and Shen Zi's polite interjections, Old Man Ju merely snorted. "I'm only letting you stay out of respect for your father." After Chuanzi departed, Old Man Ju led them to the eastern wing of the house. He curtly informed them the bedding was clean, told them he would call them when dinner was ready, and instructed them to go to sleep early. Before leaving, he reiterated the exact same chilling directive they had heard earlier. "Do not leave the house at night." Once alone, Chi Ziyu watched from the window as the old man entered the kitchen. He turned to Shen Zi. "Did you catch that?" "Yes," Shen Zi nodded grimly. "Do not leave the house at night." The true reason for their undercover operation ran deep. A month prior, Shen Zi's former college roommate, now stationed at the Ningbe Sub-Bureau, had sought him out in desperation. 2 months ago, Captain Wang and his team had tracked a fugitive deep into the mountains, lost contact, and vanished. Despite extensive search efforts, authorities only found the crushed vehicle. The delayed email containing the words Xiojia village was the only lead, but official maps and databases showed no such location. Out of options, the detective had traveled all the way to Pingjing to beg Shen Zi for his specialized help. Surveying the room, Chi Ziyu noted the extreme isolation. "It's incredibly cut off here. I didn't even see any electricity lines on the way in." Shen Zi picked an object off the table. "Do you know what this is?" When the young man shook his head, Shen Zi smiled. "It's an oil lamp." He pulled out a lighter and ignited the wick. Chi Ziyu sighed, pulling out his fully functional smartphone, realizing it was now effectively a brick. No electricity means no cell service either. As Shen Zi unloaded their gear, Chi Ziyu set up his easel in the yard to sketch the unpolluted, stunning mountain sunset. Old Man Ju watched them silently from the kitchen door. Dinner was surprisingly robust, cooked over a traditional wood-fired stove. There was rice, a meat dish, 2 vegetable stir-fries, and a wild green salad with a uniquely refreshing taste. During the meal, Shen Zi complimented the tidy house. Old Man Ju proudly mentioned it was renovated by his son, who worked in that exact trade in the city. As soon as the sun dipped below the horizon, darkness swallowed the mountains rapidly. Armed only with the dim light of the oil lamp and some hot water provided by their host, the two men washed up and climbed onto the traditional heated brick bed, the kang. The extreme drop in mountain temperature made the heavy cotton quilts perfectly comfortable. Outside, the mountain night was anything but silent. A deafening chorus of frogs and insects kept them awake. Lying in the dark, they discussed the lack of obvious anomalies. The village appeared to be nothing more than a xenophobic, isolated mountain community. If it's just a normal village, Chiziyu whispered, why couldn't the police find it before? We just drove right in. Shenzi touched the round bodhi beads on his wrist. That is the anomaly of Zyojia village. The exterior of this village is surrounded by a barrier. Chiziyu was stunned. A barrier. Yes, Shenzi confirmed. Ordinary people simply cannot enter. This village is hiding something dark. The barrier proves this place harbors someone or something of significance. Tomorrow, we investigate. The next morning, the two men hiked into the pristine, old-growth forests surrounding the village. Shenzi carried a camera, perfectly playing the role of a curious tourist. Observing the village from a high peak, they noted the layout was remarkably normal, lacking any deliberate mystical formation. Which means, Shenzi deduced, the barrier hiding this village is powered by something completely hidden. They discussed the grim reality of the missing officers. If the village harbored a dark secret and the police had stumbled upon it, the likelihood of their survival was virtually zero. Furthermore, case files indicated the fugitive they were chasing had also vanished here. Returning to the village at noon, they learned more about Old Man Ju over lunch. He had a son working in the city and a daughter married within the village. He supplemented his income by farming 2 acres of land, a precarious existence dependent on the weather. To loosen the old man's tongue, Shenzi produced a bottle of white liquor from his car. Mid-meal, Old Man Ju's daughter Yingzi burst into the house, panting heavily. She pulled her father outside. Feigning ignorance, Shenzi continued eating, but carefully tuned his senses to their hushed conversation in the kitchen. Dad, that girl from Dadong's family passed away this morning, Yingzi whispered urgently. We knew since spring she wouldn't survive the summer. It's a shame, she was a pretty girl. We finalized the agreement with their family earlier this year, didn't we? Old Man Ju asked. Yes, Yingzi replied. My brother-in-law passed away last year. Their ages are a perfect match. They can be paired in the underworld to keep each other company. But Dad, you need to talk to the patriarch. With outsiders in the village, I'm afraid he won't allow it. If this falls through, my husband's family will blame me. Old Man Ju agreed to ask the patriarch that evening, warning her not to act rashly until he had clear instructions. When Old Man Ju returned to the table, Shenzi casually asked why his daughter hadn't come inside. The old man bluntly replied that she was busy, signaling the end of the conversation. Back in their room, Shenzi explained to a confused Chi Ziyu what he had overheard. It was a macabre revelation. The village was planning a Minghun, a ghost marriage. A ghost marriage, Shenzi explained, also known as bone matching or spirit marriage, unites deceased individuals who were engaged before death or young people who died before marrying. It can be between 2 deceased people or even a living person and a dead one. According to the conversation, Yingzi's brother-in-law had been dead for years. Dadong's daughter had been chronically ill, and the 2 families had secretly arranged this posthumous union. Shenzi detailed the chillingly elaborate traditions of such a ceremony. It mirrored a traditional Chinese wedding, complete with matchmakers, matching astrological charts and bridal sedans, but deeply intertwined with funeral rites. Dowries and betrothal gifts consisted of both real items and paper effigies, paper clothes, jewelry, and mansions to be burned at the gravesite. The ceremony featured spirit tablets placed on decorated beds, families weeping bitterly as the bride's tablet was carried away, and ultimately, a joint burial where the bride's coffin was lowered into an excavated chamber next to the groom's. And they are holding it tonight, Shenzi predicted calmly. Later that afternoon, seeking further clues, the duo wandered to the far end of the village. The community was impoverished, with Old Man Ju and the chief owning the only decent homes. They entered a dense grove of ancient, towering trees that completely blotted out the sun. Instantly, the temperature plummeted. Chi Ziyu rubbed his arms as goosebumps erupted across his skin. Why is it so cold? The yin energy here is extremely heavy, Shen Zi noted, his brow furrowing. He suspected a burial ground was nearby. Deep in the woods, they found it. Unlike city cemeteries, this was a massive rural graveyard. A single stone stele stood at the front, bearing a name, while hundreds of unmarked dirt mounds stretched out behind it, generations of the Zhao family buried in a collective ancestral plot. Suddenly, angry shouts shattered the silence. A group of aggressive young men charged them. The leader shoved Chiziyu, who nearly fell before Shen Zi caught him. Shen Zi pulled the young man behind him and grabbed the aggressor's arm in a vice grip. "We are just sketching," Shen Zi stated calmly. The youth sneered, accusing them of ulterior motives. As the situation escalated, an authoritative voice boomed from behind. "What is going on here?" It was Chief Zhao, accompanied by Old Man Ju and several elders. Shen Zi played the polite, ignorant tourist, apologizing profusely. The chief sternly explained that outsiders were forbidden in the graveyard. He let them off with a warning, ordering Old Man Ju to escort them back and teach them the village rules. He then berated the young thug for acting recklessly. On the silent walk back, Old Man Ju was furious. Once inside, he issued a final ultimatum. Aside from the graveyard, the sacred pool behind the village was strictly off-limits. Do not enter the water and show no disrespect to it. Break the rules again, and you will be packing your bags. Reviewing photos on a laptop in their room, they noted the graveyard was perfectly camouflaged by the woods. Chi Ziyu found it strange that no one had warned them about the woods beforehand. "They wanted us to wander, but not too far," Shen Zi deduced. "It was to prevent us from discovering what happens tonight." During dinner, Old Man Ju brought out an antique jug of incredibly potent homemade liquor. Chi Ziyu, accustomed only to mild foreign wines, took a sip and instantly choked, his face flushing deep red. Shen Zi stepped in, apologizing for his cousin's low tolerance, and proceeded to match the old man drink for drink until he seemingly passed out. Old Man Ju helped Chi Ziyu carry the drunken Shen Zi to bed, provided hot water, and left them for the night. The moment the door clicked shut, Shen Zi sat up, a sharp smile on his face. He hadn't been drunk at all. "He wanted to incapacitate us so we wouldn't interfere," Shen Zi explained. "Traditional weddings complete their rituals before midnight. A ghost marriage is no different." At 10:00 p.m., they heard Old Man Ju lock the main gate from the outside and leave. Shen Zi and Chi Ziyu slipped out of their room, scaled the courtyard wall, and dropped silently into the moonlit night. They navigated to Yingzi's house, finding it bathed in the eerie glow of white candles. Dozens of people moved about in absolute, terrifying silence. By 11:00 p.m., the procession began. Men in black with white sashes played funeral dirges on traditional Suona horns. They were followed by a blood-red paper sedan chair, paper dowry chests, and a matchmaker dressed in black with a white flower in her hair. A wedding procession playing funeral music, Chi Ziyu whispered, horrified. They tracked the macabre parade to Dadong's house. The matchmaker entered and returned carrying the bride's spirit tablet, followed by a man holding a mourning portrait. In the flickering candlelight, Shen Zi saw the face of the deceased bride, a girl no older than 15. As the bride's tablet was placed in the paper sedan, her parents erupted into theatrical, agonizing wails. Shen Zi explained that if the parents didn't cry, the ghost bride might feel unloved, harbor resentment, and refuse to leave, ruining the ritual. To their surprise, the procession did not return to the groom's house. Instead, it marched straight into the dark woods, heading directly for the graveyard. Shen Zi noted this was a severe deviation from traditional customs, where the joint burial happens on a separate, auspicious day. At the graveyard, the paper effigies were piled up and set ablaze in a massive bonfire. Then, the true horror unfolded. Villagers exhumed the coffin of the deceased groom. The bride's coffin was brought forward. Both were draped in red cloth and carried deep into the woods, past the graves. "Where are they going?" Chi Ziyu asked. "Is there another graveyard?" "No," Shen Zi said, his eyes narrowing. "There is only a lake, the sacred pool." They followed the crowd to the shores of the massive mountain lake. Waiting at the water's edge was a group of figures shrouded in bizarre black cloaks, their faces entirely concealed. As the coffins were lowered, the cloaked figures began chanting an alien, guttural incantation, marching in a circle and pressing their hands against the head of the coffins. An elder's booming voice chanted in a language Shen Zi couldn't decipher. The coffins were opened. The bodies were lifted out and placed into two small boats on the water, pushed gently away from the shore. The entire village then dropped to their knees, bowing toward the water. While Qi Ziyu assumed it was a water burial, Shen Zi's eyes were locked on the boats. Suddenly, a colossal vortex materialized in the center of the lake. The water level plummeted as the boats were violently sucked into the abyss. From the depths of the water, a resonant, deafening sound erupted. "What was that?" Qi Ziyu gasped. "A dragon," Shen Zi said, his face pale. "A dragon's roar." But that wasn't the most horrifying detail. "The girl was alive," Shen Zi whispered. Qi Ziyu recoiled in shock. "What, alive?" "She might have been dying, but before she went into the water, I saw her body twitch. And she was bound with ropes." It wasn't a ghost marriage. It was a live human sacrifice. Yet Shen Zi knew true divine dragons did not eat humans, especially living ones. Whatever was in that pool was something else entirely. After the villagers departed, the two investigators examined the water. Under the moonlight, the lake was perfectly placid, betraying no sign of the violent sacrifice. Shen Zi realized the extreme xenophobia of the village was necessary to hide generations of ritualistic murder. He hypothesized the fugitive had fled into the water, and the missing police officers had tried to follow him, only to be stopped, or killed, by the villagers to protect their monstrous secret. The next morning, Old Man Ju cooked breakfast as usual, casually probing them about their plans. When Shen Zi mentioned painting by the lake, the old man issued a stern, cryptic warning not to stay there long. Spending the day by the lake, they found it stunningly beautiful, with crystal-clear water. Yet, ominously, no villagers ever came near it to fish or swim. Shen Zi threw a heavy rock into the water. It sank without a ripple. Returning to the village at dusk, they walked into a scene of utter chaos. They were instantly surrounded by a furious mob led by the young thug, Xiao Daheng. "It's them, Chief, it's them," Daheng screamed. Chief Xiao stepped forward, his face grim. "Where were you all day?" When Shen Zi confirmed they had been at the sacred pool, the chief delivered shocking news. Old Man Ju was dead. Shen Zi demanded to see the scene. The chief reluctantly agreed. They were led to Old Man Ju's farm plot just outside the village. The sight was so gruesome that villagers were turning away to vomit. Old Man Ju had been literally torn to pieces. Flesh and blood painted the soil in a horrifying tableau. The chief suggested a wild animal attack, but Shen Zi, examining the scene, knew instantly that no animal could inflict such catastrophic, specific trauma. The chief was lying, and he knew it. Daheng's brother-in-law, Dasheng, stood nearby, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, but he remained silent. The chief ordered the outsiders to leave the village immediately, citing the tragedy. Realizing pushing back would blow their cover, Shen Zi agreed to leave the next day. As they walked back in the dark, Shen Zi caught a glimpse of a fleeting red shadow slipping into the woods. None of the villagers seemed to notice it. Instructing Qi Ziyu to return to the house, Shen Zi broke away from the group and tracked the red shadow into the dense, trackless forest. He knew he was being lured, but he followed the bait. Deep in the woods, he found a geographical anomaly. From the outside, it looked like a dense forest, but the interior was dominated by a single, impossibly massive banyan tree. Its trunk was as wide as 5 grown men, its branches drooping to the ground and taking root, creating a sprawling, interconnected wooden fortress. Shen Zi placed his hand on the bark, feeling an overwhelming, pulsating life force. Suddenly, an icy breath hit his neck. A freezing, translucent arm wrapped around his throat. Another hand slipped under his collar, trailing down his chest like a cold snake. It wasn't seductive, it was predatory. Shen Zi remained perfectly still. When the hands reached his waist, he grabbed the wrists with a crushing grip. A woman's chilling giggle echoed behind him. He stepped forward, breaking the embrace, and turned around. She was breathtakingly beautiful, dressed in a traditional blood-red bridal gown. Her skin was porcelain pale, almost translucent, her dark hair cascading wildly. Her eyes were sharp, radiating lethal allure. Shenzi assessed her calmly, knowing beautiful things were often the most deadly. "You're an interesting one," the female ghost in red teased, covering her mouth as she laughed. "Most men don't make that face when they see me." "If you're no longer of the living world, why linger here?" Shenzi asked flatly. Her playful demeanor vanished, replaced by seething rage. "Mind your own business. Leave." Surprised she hadn't tried to kill him immediately, Shenzi loosened his grip on his bodhi beads. "Why did you kill Old Man Jew?" At that name, the ghost's resentful yin energy exploded. A localized hurricane whipped through the clearing, forcing Shenzi to shield his eyes. Her red gown and hair thrashed in the spectral wind. Shenzi realized her dress wasn't just red. It was a bridal gown from a dynasty centuries past. "Why did I kill him?" she shrieked, lunging forward to throttle Shenzi. "I will kill him. I will kill this entire village. They imprisoned me here for hundreds of years. Now that I am free, I will have my revenge." She choked him fiercely, though Shenzi sensed she was holding back just enough to keep him conscious. He grabbed her wrists and forced them apart. Astonished by his physical strength, she backed away. Coughing, Shenzi asked, "Why did they imprison you?" "Why don't you ask them?" she sneered, realizing he was an outsider. "Leave. I don't kill the innocent." Intrigued by a vengeful spirit with a moral code, Shenzi refused to leave. "Tell me your story." Lonely after centuries of isolation, Yao Kaienqian finally spoke. Hundreds of years ago, a devastating famine struck Xiaojia village. An orphaned youth fled the village and nearly died of starvation on the road. He was saved by Yao Kaienqian's father, a wealthy traveling merchant. The youth was honest and brilliant, eventually rising to become the top manager of their business. Over the years, he and Yao Kaienqian fell deeply in love. Her protective father, fearing a traditional marriage would leave her vulnerable, arranged for the youth to marry into their family as a live-in son-in-law. 6 years later, the couple returned to Xiaojia village to hold a second ceremony and honor his ancestors. The husband, grateful for the villagers who had fed him as a child, brought lavish gifts. Among the recipients was Xiao, a childhood friend turned village thug. Seeing the orphan return wealthy with a beautiful wife, Xiao's greed and lust consumed him. During the wedding banquet, Xiao and his cronies, the sons of the village elders, got the husband blackout drunk. Under the guise of helping him to the bridal chamber, they murdered him in cold blood. Xiao then attempted to rape Yao Kaienqian. She escaped and fled to the clan patriarch, begging for justice. But when Xiao named his accomplices, the sons of the highest authorities in the village, the patriarch realized justice would mean executing their own blood. To protect their sons and cover up the murder, the village elders made a ruthless decision: eliminate the witness. The entire village hunted Yao Kaienqian down that night. They strangled her and threw her body, along with her husband's, into a shallow grave in the woods. But her torment didn't end there. Because she died unjustly, her soul remained tethered to her corpse. The next night, Xiao, furious at being beaten by the elders for causing the mess, dug up the grave. He hacked her husband's body to pieces and fed him to wild dogs. Then, mesmerized by Yao Kaienqian's supernaturally preserved, immaculate corpse, he defiled her. Terrified that she would become a vengeful spirit, the patriarch hired a dark Taoist. The sorcerer cast a brutal hex, sealing her soul inside the banyan tree for centuries. Recently, the seal had weakened, allowing her to break free. Her first act was to slaughter Old Man Jew, the direct descendant of the monster, Xiao. Shenzi listened in grim silence. "Those who harmed you are dust," he reasoned. "Killing their descendants is meaningless." "Easy for you to say," she shrieked. "My husband was butchered. I was murdered and violated by an animal. Should I just let it go while their bloodlines thrive in peace?" "I can help you pass on," Shenzi offered. "What good is that?" she mocked bitterly. "My husband has reincarnated countless times by now, and do you think these villagers are innocent? Do you know what Old Man Jew did? Do you think his hands were clean?" Before Shenzi could press for details, she ordered him to leave. When he refused, vowing to stop her from killing again, she attacked. Shenzi wrapped the bodhi beads around his hand and began chanting Buddhist sutras. A blinding, holy golden light erupted from his body. Yao Kaienqian screamed in agony, dissolving into black smoke and retreating into the tree. Shenzi realized the massive tree had absorbed her resentment for centuries and was on the verge of becoming a demon itself. "Come out," Shenzi commanded the tree. "Let's make a deal. 3 of my friends vanished here. Help me find them, and I will help you find your husband's reincarnation." Yao Kaienqian materialized, peeking cautiously from behind the trunk. "You can really find him." "I will go to the underworld and search the registries," Shenzi promised. "But you must stop killing. If you drown your soul in innocent blood, you will never be allowed to reunite with him." She hesitated, then agreed. She vanished into the tree and returned holding a blood-stained scent sachet. "I embroidered this for him," she whispered tenderly. "He wore it for years." Taking the artifact, Shenzi returned to the village, realizing the ghost was the key to staying. The village was drowning in blood and secrets. The disappearance of the police officers was just the tip of a terrifying iceberg. While Shenzi negotiated with the ghost, Qi Ziyu was trapped at the chief's house, heavily guarded by hostile villagers. Tension was near the breaking point when a scout announced Shenzi's return. Shenzi walked casually toward the chief's house, only to be blocked by the hot-headed Xiao Daheng and his gang. Daheng aggressively demanded to know where he had been. Shenzi, needing a pretext to stay, welcomed the confrontation. Luckily, a messenger called him inside before a fight broke out. Inside the courtyard, the mood was heavy. Villagers had retrieved Old Man Ju's remains, placing them on a makeshift stretcher covered by a white cloth soaked entirely in blood. Yingzi and her husband Dasheng arrived. Upon lifting the sheet, Yingzi shrieked and collapsed, fainting from the horror of her father's mutilated state. When she revived, she begged the chief for answers. "It must have been a wild animal," the chief lied smoothly, patting Dasheng on the shoulder. Shenzi knew the chief was fully aware no animal did this, yet he was controlling the narrative with iron authority. Yingzi accepted the lie, deciding to delay the funeral until her brother could return from the city. After dispersing the crowd with warnings about wild animals, the chief took Shenzi and Qi Ziyu inside. When Qi Ziyu suggested calling the police, the chief sneered and told them to get out of his village. But Shenzi sat down, tapped the table, and smiled. "Chief, was Old Man Ju really killed by an animal?" The chief tensed. "What do you know?" "I know that if this isn't handled properly, more people will die," Shenzi stated flatly. After a tense standoff, Shenzi pulled out a stack of high-quality, forged business cards and handed one to the chief. It identified him as an investigative journalist. Shenzi offered a deal. He would investigate and resolve the supernatural threat, and in return, the chief would let him write a sensational, anonymized article about the village to boost his career. The chief, desperate for a solution to the ghost problem, agreed. They shook hands, both men harboring hidden agendas. The chief fully intended to kill Shenzi once the ghost was dealt with. Leaving the house, Qi Ziyu was baffled by the business card trick. Shenzi revealed a wallet stuffed with fake credentials for every occasion, a necessity for undercover detective work. Back at Old Man Ju's house, they discussed the forensic reality. Qi Ziyu realized the body hadn't been cut. It had been literally ripped apart by sheer, inhuman force. Shenzi confirmed it was the work of a ghost. He explained that spirits operate purely on love and hate, and that human malice was often far more terrifying than the ghosts it created. He recounted Yao Kaienqian's story, noting her cryptic claim that Old Man Ju had blood on his own hands. Meanwhile, the village efficiently constructed a mourning hall for Old Man Ju on the communal thrashing floor, as custom dictated that victims of violent deaths could not be brought home. That evening, Shenzi and Qi Ziyu visited the mourning hall. Shenzi handed Yingzi the room and board money as a gesture of condolence. Xiao Daheng, observing from the sidelines, sneered at what he perceived as fake sympathy. Determined to catch Shenzi in the act of sabotage, Daheng decided to stand guard outside Old Man Ju's house all night. It was a fatal mistake. At midnight, freezing in the summer air, Daheng saw a hazy, hunched figure manifest near the house. It perfectly resembled the recently deceased Old Man Ju. Terrified that the old man's ghost had returned, Daheng backed away in horror. Inside, Shenzi woke up, sensing the entity. He opened the courtyard gate, scaring the ghost away into the shadows. Seeing Daheng trembling by the wall, Shenzi invited him inside, warning him the night was no longer safe. Inside, a pale Daheng confessed he had just seen Old Man Ju's ghost. Shenzi didn't feign surprise. He used the opportunity to interrogate Daheng about Old Man Ju's past. His reputation was fine, Daheng stammered before admitting the truth. But when he was younger, he was violent. He beat his wife so badly she ran away. Shenzi probed deeper. Did anyone actually see her leave? Daheng shook his head. No, she just vanished without a word. The village assumed she fled the abuse. Shenzi let Daheng sleep on their floor for his own safety. The next morning, panic struck again. A group of boys pounded on the gate, looking for Daheng. They delivered horrific news. Yingzi had died right in front of her father's spirit tablet. Rushing to the morning hall, they found Yingzi lying dead on the ground, her eyes wide open in sheer terror. Shenzi pressed a finger to her forehead. His face darkened. Her soul is gone, Shenzi whispered to the chief. Not departed to the afterlife. It has been completely obliterated. The chief's face drained of color. He understood immediately that this was beyond human capability. He ordered Shenzi and Chiziyu to follow him. They were led to the forbidden Xiao family ancestral hall, a sprawling, ancient structure filled with hundreds of spirit tablets. The chief unlocked a windowless, secret room in the back. Inside, a small altar held 2 isolated tablets covered in Taoist sealing talismans. The talisman on the right tablet was shredded to pieces. The name on the shredded tablet read, Yao Qian. The chief sighed heavily. I knew this would happen. She has escaped. Shenzi looked at the second tablet. The name read, Xiao Yanjai. It was the murdered husband. The chief then told Shenzi a version of history completely opposed to Yao Qian's narrative. According to the chief, Xiao Yanjai was an ungrateful traitor, and Yao Qian was a wicked woman. Their deaths were tragic accidents, and they were sealed away because the village feared their irrational vengeance. Shenzi saw right through the lie. A story full of logical holes, passed down to justify murder. He also knew Xiao Yanjai's soul wasn't a threat, he had already reincarnated. The chief begged Shenzi to destroy Yao Qian. Shenzi played hard to get, demanding to know what he would get in return. If you destroy her, the chief offered, I will give you the item you came here looking for. Shenzi feigned ignorance. The chief elaborated, another man came here recently looking for it. Unfortunately, he lost his life before he could get it. Shenzi's heart raced. The fugitive had indeed come here, lured by something incredibly valuable, and had apparently been killed by the village. Shenzi agreed to the chief's terms, needing to uncover the village's darkest secrets to find his missing colleagues. Returning to Yingzi's body, Qi Ziyu conducted a covert forensic examination. No external trauma, no bruising. She was literally scared to death, he confirmed. While they ate lunch provided by the chief, Shenzi sent Qi Ziyu out of the village in the Cherokee to run a background check on the fugitive and the history of Xiaojia village. Alone, Shenzi returned to the chief's house. Over a jar of Old Man Ju's prized homemade liquor, Shenzi confronted the chief about Old Man Ju's missing wife. Under the influence of the alcohol, the chief confessed the horrifying truth. She didn't run away. She's dead. Decades ago, during a drunken rage, Old Man Ju had beaten his wife to death. The chief had walked in on the aftermath. Pitying Old Man Ju's 2 toddlers, Yingzi and Hangzhu, the chief helped cover up the murder. They buried her body on the wild, uncultivated mountain behind the village. Shenzi demanded to be taken to the grave. The chief, armed with a machete to hack through the dense undergrowth, led him up the forbidding back mountain. The flora here was entirely shade-loving, exuding a heavy yin energy. Shenzi recognized rare, dark-aligned plants from ancient texts. As they neared the grave beneath a massive tree, they froze. The burial mound had collapsed, and a large hole had been torn open from behind the headstone. The dirt is fresh, Shenzi observed, dug up maybe 2 days ago. The chief panicked, realizing this coincided with Old Man Ju's murder. But if the wife killed Old Man Ju, why would she kill her own daughter, Yingzi? Shenzi pointed to bizarre, purple-black vines creeping out of the grave. Demon vines, Shenzi said. They only grow in areas saturated with demonic energy. Your friend's wife didn't just become a ghost. She became a demon, and she dug her way out from the inside. Where is she now? The chief trembled. Right behind you, Shenzi smiled thinly. The chief turned slowly. Standing there was a woman in her 30s, dressed in ancient robes, stunningly beautiful with blood-red nails. But as she snapped her fingers, the illusion shattered. She was a horrifying, rotting skeleton. Black smoke rapidly coalesced around the bones, reforming into the visage of Kyuyer, old man Ju's murdered wife, exactly as she looked the day she died. A massive, bloody hole marred her forehead. Patriarch, she sneered. The chief stammered an apology for the past, but condemned her for killing her husband and daughter. Kyuyer's face twisted in absolute hatred. He murdered me. He buried me in this cursed place, trapping my soul in torment for decades. Of course I killed him, her expression softened into agony. But I did not kill my daughter, Yingzi. I only seek revenge on those who wronged me. If Kyuyer killed old man Ju, Shenzi realized, who did Yao Kaienqian kill? Kyuyer turned her wrath on the chief, promising he was next. The sky instantly blackened. Purple lightning arced through unnatural storm clouds. She wept tears of blood, her eyes glowing red, and launched herself into the air, diving at Shenzi with skeletal claws. Shenzi removed his bodhi beads and began chanting. A blinding aura of Buddhist light erupted from him. He formed hand seals, the beads spinning between his palms, projecting glowing sutra script into the air. A beam of holy light struck Kyuyer's shoulder, scorching her flesh black. She screamed in pain, realizing he was a master of the Buddhist arts. She transformed the black smoke into a colossal, demonic bat and dive-bombed him. Shenzi didn't flinch. He chanted the esoteric mantra, Om Vajra Mandala Hum Svaha. The bodhi beads exploded into a barrage of golden lasers, obliterating the bat and piercing the dark clouds above, restoring the daylight. Kyuyer collapsed, vomiting black blood. Before Shenzi could apprehend her, a violent black tornado erupted from the ground, enveloping her and spiriting her away. The entity backing her was immensely powerful. Walking down the mountain, Shenzi warned the chief to put the village on high alert. Kyuyer was a demon now, and if she lost control, a massacre was imminent. At the village gate, they ran into Tieru H. letter 183 and Ji Chao, Zio Hongzhu, old man Ju's son, who had just rushed back from the city. The chief deflected the young man's frantic questions about his family's sudden deaths. That night, utilizing his unlocked heavenly eye, a spiritual sight granted by his master, Chuzun, Shenzi surveyed the village. The spiritual reality was staggering. Black tornadoes swept the back mountain. The graveyard was packed with wandering spirits, and the sacred pool was boiling with columns of black smoke. The entire village was a spiritual prison. No souls could leave. Shenzi went to the giant banyan tree to check on Yao Kaienqian. The tree was dying, its leaves yellow and falling. Inside the hollowed trunk, he was suddenly attacked from behind and choked violently. It was Yao Kaienqian, but she looked horrific, emaciated, gray-skinned, coughing up blood, her bridal gown in tatters. "You traitor," she screamed, "I trusted you." Shenzi grabbed her wrist with his bodhi beads, burning her and forcing her back. He demanded an explanation. Yao Kaienqian claimed that after they made their deal, Shenzi had returned in the middle of the night and brutally ambushed her. She had barely survived by hiding deep within the tree's core. "Do you have a brain?" Shenzi sighed in exasperation. "If I wanted to kill you, I would use Buddhist mantras, not physical attacks, and you wouldn't have survived. Someone impersonated me to provoke us into killing each other." Realizing the logic, she backed down. Shenzi promised to summon the underworld enforcers, black and white impermanents, to check the registries for her husband. At midnight, the hour of maximum yin energy, Shenzi set up a Taoist altar, burning incense and paper money to summon the enforcers. He chanted the incantations, but the incense smoke drifted toward the village boundary and was abruptly sliced off, as if hitting an invisible glass wall. "What happened?" Yao Kaienqian asked, peeking from the tree. "A massive barrier," Shenzi said grimly. "My summons cannot leave. The underworld enforcers cannot enter. Yao Kaienqian revealed she had seen a black dragon in the sacred pool, confirming Shen Zi's suspicion about the dragon's roar during the sacrifice. Shen Zi warned her to stay hidden and absolutely avoid the back mountain and the pool, lest the demonic energy there consume her completely. Shen Zi went to the sacred pool alone. Staring into the deceptively clear water, he was startled by a voice behind him. An elderly man in ancient robes stood there, glowing faintly. Shen Zi's heavenly eye revealed the man had no soul fires on his forehead or shoulders. He was merely a fading residual imprint. I am but a remnant shadow, the old man smiled warmly. You are blessed by fate. You make a fine breaker of the board. What board, senior? Shen Zi asked respectfully. This pool was once a small pond. It grew to this size because of that thing resting within it, the old man said cryptically. To break the board, you must find that thing. The heaven's secrets cannot be fully revealed. I have guarded this place for ages, waiting for you. The rest is in your hands. With that, the old man dissolved into nothingness. Frustrated by the riddles, Shen Zi looked down into the water. Suddenly, Qi Ziyu's face appeared beneath the surface. Qi Ziyu was mouthing words, looking terrified. Suddenly, the image glitched, and blood began pouring down Qi Ziyu's face in the water. Ziyu, Shen Zi screamed, reaching into the water to grab his friend's bloody hand. Suddenly, a pair of arms wrapped around his waist and violently tackled him to the dirt. Shen Zi snapped out of the trance to find Xiao Deheng pinning him down. What the hell are you doing? Deheng yelled. You were about to jump in. Shen Zi looked back at the water. A skeletal hand slowly sank beneath the surface. Deheng hadn't seen it. The illusions were targeting Shen Zi. Deheng explained the chief had sent for Shen Zi regarding a crisis. Back at the tree, a mob of villagers, led by a middle-aged man holding kerosene and matches, was trying to burn Yao Kaienqian's banyan tree to the ground, blaming her for the deaths. Deheng was fiercely defending the tree, following the chief's orders. The middle-aged man screamed that the ghost had killed his wife and child, and he was ready to die to destroy her. A chilling giggle echoed. Tell me, who killed your wife and child? The villagers froze. A man screamed the ghost and bolted. The rest of the mob panicked and fled in terror, leaving only the man with the kerosene, Deheng, Shen Zi, and the chief. Yao Kaienqian floated down from the branches in her pristine red gown. She approached the terrified man. I did not kill your family. I only seek revenge on my murderers. Ignoring the man, she turned her gaze to Xiao Deheng. She stared at him intently. Tears welled in her eyes, rolling down her cheeks and landing on Daheng's face. Yanjai, she whispered, throwing herself into Daheng's chest, sobbing uncontrollably. Deheng didn't push her away. Instead, a bizarre, profound ache pierced his heart. Don't cry, he murmured softly. Shen Zi pulled out a small knife. Yao Kaienqian, if he is your husband, the red thread of fate tying your pinky fingers together should still exist in the spiritual realm. Shen Zi sliced Daheng's left index finger, smeared a drop of blood on his own finger, and chanted a Buddhist sutra. Instantly, a glowing red thread materialized, tied tightly around Daheng's pinky, extending out and connecting directly to Yao Kaienqian's spectral finger. Deheng was flabbergasted. Shen Zi explained the concept of reincarnation. Deheng was indeed the reincarnated soul of Xiao Yanjai. The only reason the thread hadn't severed was because Yao Kaienqian's obsessive love had anchored it across the boundary of life and death. Accepting that her husband was now a living human with no memory of their past life, having drank Meng Po's soup of forgetfulness in the underworld, Yao Kaienqian let him go. Shen Zi promised to help her pass on once the village's mysteries were solved. Taking Deheng home, Shen Zi realized a glaring contradiction. If all souls were trapped in Xiaojia village, and QU letter 1EF7 Psi, underworld enforcers, couldn't enter, how did Xiao Yanjai manage to enter the cycle of reincarnation and be reborn as Deheng? Unless Deheng wasn't actually a reincarnated soul at all. That night, Shen Zi marched up the forbidden back mountain, the epicenter of the village's demonic energy. Using his heavenly eye, he navigated through a literal parade of hundreds of wandering ghosts, a terrifying night march of 100 ghosts. Protected by his Buddhist aura, the spirits parted like the Red Sea. At the wife's ruined grave, the demon vines had multiplied explosively, writhing like a nest of black snakes. As they struck at him, they incinerated upon touching his holy aura. "Stop hiding," Shenzi commanded. A figure emerged from behind a tree. It was a man dressed entirely in black, his skin literally the color of charcoal. This was a snake demon. "Scram," the demon hissed. Shenzi tried diplomacy, stating he was only looking for the master of the grave. The demon responded by unleashing a massive swarm of highly venomous, black-scaled demon snakes. Sighing, Shenzi wrapped his bodhi beads around his hand, formed a Buddha seal, and chanted. A blinding golden domain expanded from his body. Every snake that touched the light vaporized into smoke. He threw the beads into the air, amplifying the light. The surrounding demonic flora withered instantly. The snake demon, burning under the holy light, was forced to retreat. Before Shenzi could finish him, a deafening dragon's roar shook the mountain, originating from the sacred pool below. The distraction allowed the snake demon to vanish. Shenzi rushed to the cliff edge. The once clear lake was pitch black, churning with violent, tempestuous waves. Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness. The black Cherokee was speeding down the mountain path, accelerating uncontrollably straight toward the raging water. Chi Ziyu was slumped unconscious at the wheel. Shenzi threw his bodhi beads into the sky, chanting the true mantra of clarity. The beads flared like a miniature sun. As the golden light struck the water, an explosive shockwave blasted across the lake. The water formed a massive maelstrom, trying to suck the car in. Shenzi leaped off the cliff, landing gracefully on the churning water without sinking. As the Cherokee hurtled toward him, he invoked the 6-syllable mantra and shouted a command. The vehicle miraculously swerved and slammed to a halt at the water's edge. Behind Shenzi, a gargantuan black dragon breached the surface of the pool, roaring into the night sky before diving back into the abyssal depths and vanishing. Shenzi didn't have time to analyze the dragon. He pulled the unconscious Chi Ziyu from the car. Checking him over, he realized Chi Ziyu hadn't driven here willingly. He had been subjected to a dark hex. The only reason the barrier allowed him back into the village was a protective amulet Chi Ziyu wore around his neck, which had shattered the ward. Returning to the village, they were assisted by Xiao Hongzhu, Old Man Jiu's son. After ensuring Chi Ziyu was stable, Shenzi slept. The next morning, Chi Ziyu awoke, disoriented. He recalled driving back, seeing a wounded woman on the road, getting out to help, and then blacking out. Over breakfast, Chi Ziyu delivered the crucial intelligence he had gathered outside. The fugitive the police were chasing was Xiao Yuzhu, a 40-year-old master thief with a long rap sheet. He had stolen an artifact of incalculable value, a freshly unearthed ancient sword from the Warring States period. He stole Chunjun, Chi Ziyu revealed, sliding a museum dossier across the table. Shenzi's eyes widened. According to ancient texts like the Yueju Shu and Wudu Fu, the legendary swordsmith Yezi forged 5 mythical swords: Zhanlu, Chunjun, Shengxi, Yucheng, and Juk. The Huinanzi described Chunjun's blade as radiating light like a blooming lotus, its patterns shimmering like a constellation, capable of cleaving through armored rhinos and sinking dragon boats. It was a weapon of divine, apocalyptic power. A thief doesn't steal a mythical artifact like Chunjun just to sell it on the black market, Shenzi deduced. He brought it here on purpose, and the chief knows it. Just as they prepared to confront the chief, Xiao Hongzhu knocked on their door. "I have a secret to tell you," the grieving son confessed. "My mother wasn't from Xiaojia village." He revealed that decades ago, a 4-year-old outsider girl had wandered into the hidden village. By sheer coincidence, the matriarch of Old Man Jiu's family had just lost her sickly, housebound daughter. To hide the outsider, they adopted her and pretended she was their biological child. Only Old Man Jiu, then 10 years old, knew the truth. When the girl grew up and married Old Man Jiu, she developed severe schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. During manic episodes, she was violent and self-destructive. In an era without psychiatric care, the village believed she was possessed because the village's gods rejected outsiders. During one violent episode where she attacked her daughter Yingzi, Old Man Jiu intervened, accidentally pushing her. She hit her head and died. The chief helped bury her, entirely unaware she was an outsider. Before he died, my father warned me, Hongju said grimly. He said this village was harboring something evil, a treasure that would eventually destroy everyone. That's why he forced me to work in the city and never come back. Shenzi thanked him and left with Qi Ziyu to confront the chief. As they walked, Shenzi pieced the horrifying puzzle together. Yao Kaianqian claimed she killed old man Ju, but Qiuyer, the demon wife, actually did. That meant Yao Kaianqian had killed someone else, someone masquerading as a living villager. The boundary between life and death here is shattered, Shenzi told a terrified Qi Ziyu. No souls can leave. Qu letter 1EF7 Psi cannot enter. There is no reincarnation here, which begs the question, where do the newborn babies in this village come from? Qi Ziyu gasped, you mean, the people walking around? I can't tell the living from the dead anymore, Shenzi admitted, his face set in grim resolve. The fugitive, Xiao Yuju, brought the divine sword Chunjun straight to the back mountain. The chief claims he died there, but I am going to find out the truth. Approaching the chief's house, Shenzi knew the final confrontation was at hand. The secrets of Xiaojia village, the fate of the missing officers, and the true nature of the black dragon in the sacred pool were all connected to the ancient, blood-soaked sword. And he was going to tear the village's lies apart to find it.